Welcome to Tech as a Solution to the 1.5-degree target. To deliver on Agenda 2030 and to stay below a temperature increase of 1.5 degrees, a fundamental change of the whole society is required, and time is running up. A lot of the focus in the society is to reduce the emissions of carbon dioxide on traditional industry with existing technology. But in the session today, we will show that disruptive technologies and innovation could have an enormous impact on the climate and the change. With me today, I have Katarina Sandberg, who is the CEO of the Deep Tech Incubator Lead from Linköping, Norrköping. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we also have Julia Kreutz from Cybercom. And the both of you have worked in a very exciting project during 2020, and you will share that with us.
Yes.
Yeah. And we also invited Stina Lantz from Ignite Sweden.
Thank you.
And Jenny Ellsberg from Vinnova. Welcome. And you are both important players in the innovation network in Sweden. And for all of you in the audience, this is pre-recorded, so we are actually online, all of us, and we are ready to answer your questions. But please address who the question is really, who do you want to talk to? And we will also meet you online afterwards. So, Katarina and Julia, tell us about your story.
Yeah. The purpose with the project was to explore how we can contribute and maximize the positive contribution to the global sustainability. And then we contacted Cybercom to see if we could together create and implement a method that we could implement through our whole business model and business process. And as we are an incubator, our biggest possibility to make impact is to work through our entrepreneurs and startups. So that's why we wanted to implement it through our business process. And we also wanted to see if we could measure our contribution and how we contributed to avoided emissions.
Avoided emissions. Can you explain a little bit? What does that mean?
Yes, so avoided emissions are emission reductions that occur outside of a product's life cycle or value chain, so as a result of when that product is being used. And if we take, for example, a video conference solution, instead of only focusing on reducing the emissions that come from developing the hardware and infrastructure needed to provide this video conference solution, we look at what happens in society when our product is used.
Okay, so basically, less emissions from cars and planes because we don't travel, we meet virtually.
Exactly.
Is that it? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. You mentioned this model or method that you are implementing. What is it?
Julia can start.
Yes, absolutely. So we developed a method that we call the Piku Method, and the purpose, as Katarina mentioned before, was to find a way to maximize leads' positive contribution through their startups and entrepreneurs. And to do so, we parted this method into 4 steps. And the first step is about identifying and accelerating potential. And so when we talk about potential here, we mean the potential to contribute to positively to the global sustainability. And then we have defining, developing, and refining, developing, and accelerating the ideas. And we do that through business development and the tools that you offer at LEAD. And thirdly, we have encouraging and accelerating clustering, which is if you have one startup that has a kind of low probability of potential impact, then we can pair that together with either another startup or a larger corporation in order to try and maximize that potential and make it higher. And finally, we have support and accelerate uptake. So this is incredibly important because when a startup has a solution, they need to be able to commercialize it in order to realize the potential. And we do talk about potential here a lot today, and that is because within the project we've made assessment on a few companies, and those are, among other things, based on the probability of success for these companies. So the overall purpose of this method has been to maximize leads contribution in new ways.
And you have implemented it now?
Yeah, we're actually doing it right now. The business coaches at Lead are working with Piku and implementing it in our ordinary tools and methods and processes. And we're doing it together with a couple of startups because we're really eager to get their feedback right away so we can continue developing during the whole process. And in the beginning we said, okay, we need a year to do this. But now we more say, I see it like a continuous improvement. We will continue to improve all the way, so we're probably never finished.
So you are really integrating sustainability as a part of the strategy of the incubator. How will that affect the way you work with your startups going forward?
In many ways, both how we make the choices of which companies that we will take into Lead, but I also see it as we will meet maybe different kind of startups that will, when they hear about that we are really great into sustainability, we hopefully they will call us up and say, hey, can you help us? And so we can probably meet another type of entrepreneurs as well. But it has also opened some other new doors to new investors.
Interesting.
Because even in that part of business angels and investments, they're also focusing a lot of sustainability at the moment.
And I can imagine that doing this change, that will also affect the positioning of Lead in the network.
Hopefully it does. We have been looked into as a deep tech incubator for a long time and are really skilled at that and how to business coach deep tech companies. But I hope that we now can also take the lead of being the sustainability incubator as well.
Interesting.
And during the project, we have also looked into 4 different scenarios, which I would say in the scenario 1 and 2, it's more or less business as usual.
Okay.
We have for a long time looked into innovative, scalable ideas, and over the past years, we have also got to meet more and more people that really want to make a difference. But that has been more by a chance. So, yeah, I would say it's more business as usual. I don't know how you see it.
Yes, I agree. And I think an important part here is that the incubators within these scenarios or that work in this way, they rely quite heavily on the startups themselves to contribute with solutions that are focused or revolve around specific challenges within sustainability to generate impact. And because you work like that, or because you work in that way, a lot of potential goes undiscovered. And I think that was quite a revelation for you when we talked about this and when the assessments on your companies were made, actually.
Absolutely, and that was one of the things that made us want to go into this project. And we really right away felt we really want to take the step to scenario 3. And I would say that's where we are now when we implement PICU in the whole process.
And I would say that was a wow moment for us and my colleagues, because talking about these shifts, it makes you as a company to having to take a step back and actually look at what you're doing. And it's really scary for some, or for very many, but your reactions, and not only yours, but everyone in the room, were feeling, yeah, well, obviously, scenario 3 is what we're going to do now. This is supposed to be a part of our normal development and our business development. And how do we get to scenario 4?
Yeah.
How can we enable that shift? And that was extremely impressive, because a lot of businesses kind of shy back because of this.
Yeah,
shift.
I remember that, and that I said, okay, this is in our ordinary process. They said, oh, okay, you don't need another project. But as you say, right away, the whole team said, okay, how do we get to scenario 4? And there, I would say we can do that by ourselves. Then we really need the ecosystem. We need the whole chain.
What is scenario 4?
Scenario 4 is how we can accelerate this and make a real impact and make these companies really
Realizing
the full potential.
Okay.
Yeah, so really reaching the goal. And for being able to do that, we need the whole chain, not only the incubators. We also need Ignite and Swedish Scale Up, which was also a part of the project. So we can be sure when a startup leaves lead, and then we know that some other take the opportunity to help the company reaching the full potential.
Since we have the ecosystem here, Vinnova, what can you do to support this?
Well, we are already supporting, as we are supporting the incubators and innovative startups, and also research in the whole country. So in one way, we are already supporting it, but I have to say, first of all, thank you so much for sharing this very, very impressive example of how we can actually start communicating with each other in a new way, putting words and even numbers to the sustainability metrics, and together make the system move more towards the Agenda 2030 goals, which is, 2030 is coming closer. So I think we are contributing already, and now we can contribute by supporting initiatives that are actually making a measurable impact towards the sustainable future that we want for everyone. I really, really like the Piku model, and how you clearly emphasize the need to work, the partnership dimension, to make sure that, yes, this deep tech solution is super promising, have huge potential, and together with partners, we can actually make a huge difference globally. I am very happy to see that you generously are sharing this example with everyone.
You mentioned that you started with some of the startups. Who are they? We are curious.
Yeah, we discussed that a lot, actually. Which startups should we bring into the project? And we ended up with that we really wanted quite mature startups that we have been working with for some time, and that we also were sure that they could give us really good feedback, because we also wanted to learn during the way. So we ended up with those 4. AgriOpt, which is they have an innovation for farmers, where they have developed a digital assistant that can help farmers become more sustainable and efficient in their crop farming by combining the farmers' knowledge together with AI. And Ligna Energy, they developed a unique technique or technology for storing electrical energy in a sustainable way by using waste from the forest called lignin. And Invisense, they have an innovation in form of a sensor, which you build in when you build new houses, and they can do early detection of water damage in the rooms in a really efficient way. And FineCell, which they are developing and produces micro and nanocellulose based on natural material, which can be used to enhance and the performance of many different materials. So you can use them also in a more efficient way. And these are 4 really different companies in different segments, but they all have in common that they come from research from the university. So they are 4 really deep tech companies. So that's really exciting.
Did you suspect they would have like a big sustainable impact when you chose them?
some of them, but not all of them. But there I have my wow moment when we were presented at the workshop with Cybercom and RISE, the numbers that were counted. Because there we really saw that they really made a big impact.
What an incredible range of companies. Now we are only curious on the avoided emission. What was the result?
It was actually 16 million tons of potential avoided emissions. And for me, that was just a number when I first heard it. But Julia, when you explained.
I think the absolute wow factor for you guys were when we brought up what Sweden's yearly emissions are and how this is equivalent to that. And it's equivalent to 25% of Sweden's yearly emissions, which is quite incredible.
Yeah. So the wow came when we realized that if those 4 companies reach their full potential to 2030, they by themselves can save 25%.
Amazing.
I think it's important, and what you also have addressed is that this is, of course, when the startup have reached their full market potential. And the assessment, as I have also learned that you work a lot with also assessing the business potential in this. So it's not only looking at the avoided emissions, you're also looking at the company's probability to actually succeed on the market. But of course, we need to be a family to reach this. And it's about all of us in the innovation ecosystem, of course, need to support it. But also I think, or I know that it's crucial also for our industry and our public sector to reach out and start working with these startups. And not only these startups. In Sweden, we have 350 startups each year from our 40-something incubators in Swedish incubators and science parks. It will be so interesting to look at these numbers times the 350 startups, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then we can talk
There
about
we have the
change.
real.
Exactly.
Yeah. The real potential and the real change.
What an impact. I know that Ignite also work a lot with matching startups with industries. So what could big corporates do to accelerate the uptake of these innovations?
Start to collaborate with the startups, of course. The large companies and the public sectors, they need to be the first customers. They need to be brave enough to be customers to the startups and actually do real collaboration together and create more innovation together. That's, of course, very important. And within Ignite, we've been working with around 200 larger companies or public sector for the last couple of years. And of course, the change is coming, but we need to do better and we need to do it faster. And I would say another thing that I think this is very interesting connected to this is tangible. You can actually measure avoided emissions. And it's a framework, it's international, and it's really proven, this framework. You can trust it. And starting to measure your new projects together with startups in these terms, not only the economical return, but also the avoided emissions. That is extremely interesting and something we really should do more of, and more of today or tomorrow, not in a year. But I mean, the toolbox is here.
Absolutely. Jenny, I know that prior to Vanova, you have started Innovation Hub for a big industry. And we are talking a lot about startups here, but of course, big organizations and industries, they also have like innovation hubs and innovation zones and looking at innovation. So is this method and model applicable for large industry as well?
Yes, definitely. There are right now coming different ways of making sure you are making an impact towards Agenda 2030. And this is a really, really good tangible example that could be useful for large corporates or small startups or, public sector. It's very generic. So it's really valuable. And I think it is very important when a large company is reaching out to small companies, well, or the other way around, that we can have such methodology or similar to be able to talk about the future together, because, you know, a young company cannot really promise sales volumes or anything like that, but they can show this impact potential. And I think that could actually generate a lot of faster collaboration, because we all know this is a, you know, Agenda 2030, that's a race. We can't walk slowly to get there.
We were talking about the measuring and how important measuring is. And of course, focusing on the business case with startups has always been important, because it's about measuring the success in the market. But could this become as equally important to really measure the sustainability case? Is this something we do see already now, or what is happening?
I think so, definitely. We see definitely a trend in this direction. And as an example, one industry that we have been working a lot with is the vehicle manufacturing industry in all sizes. And there you have the drive of electrification. And just one of these startups that Katarina presented here is definitely a very interesting candidate in storing electricity that we would need in a very near future when the cars are more and more becoming more and more electric. So that is one thing. But another thing is also, for example, in order to have a really long-lasting electric vehicle, you need to have a quite huge battery today. But then if you could replace some of the material in the car, for example, the plastic and the metal that is quite heavy, with other types of organic lightweight material that is still very durable. That is, of course, extremely interesting. And this is exactly what a startup can inject into the larger company. They've developed something, researched something, built a company around that is actually, 10 years from now. Often these innovations are really like time traveling, I would say. So working with the startups to accelerate towards a better future is really a way to go faster.
It's like we used to say, do you have a problem as a big company? There is probably a startup for that.
There's always a startup for that.
So, Katarina, what's on next? What happens now?
We for sure are going to work with this from now on, but we also want to share it with others. So we are going to talk to other incubators, and together with Swedish Scale Up and Ignite, we will spread this. So.
And what was the biggest learning through this process?
It was much easier than we thought, I would say. And also what I used to say, if you start measuring something, it's so much easier to get there as well. So by start measuring as we do now, it's so much easier to reach the goal as well.
Okay, last question to Julia now. What made Cybercom interested in working with LEAD in this project?
Well, as we talked about in the beginning, incubators have an extremely good position in how to support disruptive technologies that are up and coming and support the startups and their innovations. And within the innovation ecosystem, together with Ignite and actors like Vinnova, they have a great chance of positioning Sweden globally. I would say not only within innovation, but also sustainability. And as Stina mentioned before, if we can get a few others on this track as well, we can actually increase this baseline for LEAD. Because this number is actually from LEAD supporting your startups with your regular methods and processes. Yeah. And if you are able to integrate this Piku model into your business, this number might increase to 25 million tons of potential avoided emissions. And that is equivalent to 50% of Sweden's yearly emissions, which is rather incredible. But if we do another step, and as Stina mentioned, actually brings in other incubators, and not only Sweden, but also internationally, and we count on these incubators being around 50 or something like that, and they together can produce 200 startups up till 2030, we have the potential of actually reaching 1,000 million tons of avoided greenhouse gas emissions. And even if only 20% of these startups actually succeed in realizing this potential, I mean, it's still incredible. It's still incredible numbers and an incredible impact.
But it's a global impact.
It's a global
So not in
impact.
Sweden, global impact.
Yes.
Yes. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So in Cybercom, we are obviously excited about the next phase, both directly with LEAD, but also with the scaling. And I'm sure that many more here also are ready, because we need to collaborate on this to make these numbers. And I also want to say that we really do believe that technology could be the catalyst for making the run towards 2030 and what the things we need to do to save our climate. And for that to happen, we also think that sustainability really needs to be part of the business and digital strategy, just as you have done with LEAD.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And we will meet you later in a session discussion, those of you who want to continue the discussion. And thank you so much for coming here. It has been a pleasure to listen to you and the sharing.
Thank you
Thank
for
you for
having
having
us.
us.
Thank you.